properly understanding prayer or treatment. And treatment is a very bad word. It's a carryover from metaphysical days. We're not really treating disease, and we're not really treating people. We're not treating discord. What we're doing really is praying. And the prayer that we're praying is the prayer of receptivity, listening for that still small voice until we hear it, so that the problems that are brought to us, whatever their name or nature, do not, rightfully speaking, call forth treatment. They should call forth prayer. In that same way, then, the function of the mind should be understood. Rightly speaking, mind is not God, and God is not mind. Mind is a reasoning faculty. Mind is our instrument or avenue of awareness. Through the mind we become aware, or through the mind we even have the ability to reason out, to think. I'm sure you'll agree that God neither reasons out nor thinks. God is being. And God is being without thinking it out or planning it out or reasoning it out. But there again, that which we call God consciousness, which is a state of pure being or pure knowing, is impossible to us in our human stage. And therefore we are given a mind which, the activity of which becomes our avenue of awareness, our thinking mind, our reasoning mind, our planning mind. Of course, the wrong sense of it is of the scheming mind and the cunning mind. But mind need not be evil, mind need not be cunning or scheming. Mind can legitimately be a planning mind, a reasoning mind, an instrument with which to think out. Perhaps you have had the experience, or perhaps you know others who have had the experience of giving metaphysical help and then ending up the days with headaches. This happens very frequently in the experience of practitioners, and more especially practitioners who are inexperienced or who do not know that they are misusing the mind. In other words, they sit down to give a treatment and they mentalize in such a way as to bring about an effect called a healing, or reforming, or employing, or enriching. That is not the function of spiritual prayer. That is not the function of the mind. The mind is not a creative instrument. It is an instrument of awareness. We know the truth with the mind, but we do not create things with the mind. Even an inventor doesn't create with the mind. He becomes aware of certain natural laws, laws that have always existed, and he becomes aware of how to hook them up, how to bring them together, how to utilize them. The right use of the mind as an instrument of awareness makes it not only a powerful instrument, but one that increases in its functions the more it is used. There was a time when all men who are active in brain power were supposed to get softening of the brain by the time they reached the 70s or 80s if they did. That's why it was said that Ralph Waldo Emerson died of brain disease, because he was such a brainy man and used it so much. And in that time, that was a common belief, that the more you used the mind, the more you weakened the brain. Of course, the very opposite of that is true, except if you use the mind in a wrong sense. And that can easily be done in metaphysical work, where people get the idea that just by right thinking they can change this world upside down, or they can make somebody be a better body. No. So, who by taking thought can add to his stature 1 cubit? Who by taking thought can change somebody else's disposition, or somebody else's character, or somebody else's health? Don't try it. Through the mind, become aware of this truth of spirit. Become aware of the truth of God, and that truth will do the work, not your mind and not your thought. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. It isn't the activity of your mind that frees anybody. It is the activity of truth in your mind that frees them. Now understand the mind in that way, and you will find it to be a wonderful instrument. It is the same thing, as I said before, about the power of the muscles. The power of the muscles is wrongly used when the muscles themselves are made to carry the weight. The muscle should only be an instrument for the strength which comes from the soul or the spirit. Then it is the spirit that lifts the weight, using the muscles as an instrument. And then there's no limit to the weight that can be lifted. You find that demonstrated in swimming. The harder you use your body, the more vigorously you use your body in swimming, the more quickly you will drown. There's any question about that. The only person who stays on top for a long time is the person who is utterly relaxed in the water and just rests on the water and uses the arms and the feet just as a little gliding motion through the water, not to sustain the body on top of the water. Now, most swimmers, inexperienced swimmers, use the body itself and the arm motion and the foot motion to keep their bodies afloat. It is necessary. The water holds the body up if you just relax in the water. And the more relaxed, the longer the body will stay afloat. And then the arms and the legs merely propel the body through the water. Now, same thing. We learned a little trick, if you call it that. It's really a natural law in swimming in Hawaii, that you can swim underwater and breathe underwater. You don't have to hold your breath underwater. You keep right on breathing. Of course, we haven't developed, any of us, to the extent where we can do it for long, although there are Hawaiians down there who can do it easily for 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Stay underwater and breathe underwater. But any of us down there that go out regularly can do it for 2 and 3 minutes and keep breathing. Never hold the breath. Keep breathing. How? By holding the mouth open and just letting the water flow in and out of its own accord. holding the mouth open closes the throat, so the water can't get into the throat. And the only thing that can get by is a little trickle of air. And all without effort. Just in a complete, relaxed state, with the mouth open, the water flows in and out and leaves a little trickle of air so that you can get down underneath and play around with those beautiful rocks and fish down there. The healing work is a beautiful work when it becomes as natural as breathing or floating on water. Otherwise, healing work can be harder than day labor. Anyone who has ever practiced and used the mind in their practice will testify to the fact that they're worn out long before the day is over, tired physically and mentally, and usually with a pain back across the back of the neck, at the base of the brain. Certainly they have been using the mind to try to create something out here in space, to change something in your body or in your pocketbook. That is not the function of the mind. That is not the function of spiritual wisdom. The function of spiritual wisdom is to remain relaxed in God and let the Spirit flow. Let the truth flow. And then the truth will make you free, or the truth will make your patient free, or your student free. The truth will do that. You never will. You might call that, too, the true sense of humility. I can of my own self do nothing, so why try? Just let me be relaxed and let the truth carry the work. When you're swimming, let the water carry your body. When you're giving a treatment, let the Spirit, let the truth carry the treatment. Don't try to manipulate truth with your mind. Truth is infinite. Your mind is finite. Don't try to manipulate infinite truth with a finite mind. You say, oh, but the divine mind. There aren't two minds. There's only one mind. There's only one mind, and that mind is an instrument of awareness. That mind is an instrument given to you the same as your body is. Your body is an instrument given to you virtually for the same purpose that your automobile was given to you. It's an instrument of locomotion. It's an instrument of transportation. The body is given to us so that we can move around in our present sphere of life. The body is an instrument, and the mind is the instrument of its thinking process, just as the muscles are the instrument of parts of its strength. The organs and functions are instruments. The whole body, considered as one whole, is an instrument for our use, and it isn't your instrument or mine, it's God's instrument. We are not to use the body. We are to let God use the body. We are to let God govern and control the body. And when we say that we are masters of our fate, when we say that we are captains of our soul, that's true. When we realize that God is our selfhood, then again, you see, you have that relaxed sense. There is no way of your aiding your digestion or assimilation or elimination by taking thought. The mind wasn't given to you for that purpose. The mind was given to you as an instrument for truth. But truth will govern every organ and function of your body. Truth will strengthen your muscles. Truth will give you the capacity to know anything that you have to know without ever wearing it out. The mind will never be worn out if it is an instrument for truth. The mind will be worn out if you keep using it as an instrument to create something with. Now, you get a perfect picture of the correct use of mind if you can remember any photograph that you have seen of Thomas Edison. There you had the perfect understanding of the use of mind. Whenever Thomas Edison was pictured, it was usually with his hands up this way. He was hard of hearing, but that was not the reason for his hand being up there. Those who worked with him in the laboratory said that he would give them an experiment to work on or a work to do, and they would carry it as far as they could. And then they'd call him in and say, well, Mr. Edison, we've brought it up to this, but we're stuck for the next step. And then his hand would go up here, and he'd listen, and then he'd say, now do this. That is the correct use of the mind. Listen with it. Let it become an instrument of awareness, and instead of trying to break your head and worrying about what the next step shall be, or what you're to do tomorrow or the next day, just get in the habit of doing that and then doing it, whatever it is that comes to you. Make of the mind and of the body an instrument, but an instrument of God. Let God fill the mind and let God fill the body, and then all of the organs and all the functions and all of the labors and the joys of the body will be harmonious and perfect. You see, the wrong use of the body has made people come to almost be ashamed of it, as if it was something sinful or to be hidden. But the right understanding of body would make it a perfect instrument for our living at every plane of existence. There would be nothing to be ashamed about and nothing to be afraid about. It would be God's instrument in every form and for every purpose of nature. And that is the way we were meant to live, not in fear of our bodies and not in shame of our bodies, but with the understanding that this body is an instrument through which the Father functions on earth. We are an instrument of God. We are nothing of ourselves, except as humans we have separated ourselves in belief from God and tried to be something of ourselves. And so we've succeeded in believing that we're creators. And we've succeeded in believing that we're inventors and discoverers, when all we are is instruments. We are an instrument through which God reveals its glory. The heavens declare the glory of God. The earth shows forth his handiwork, and so do we. The mind and the body shows forth God's glory and God's handiwork. And let us understand the mind and the body in that way, and then when we wish to help ourselves through prayer, or when we wish to help another through prayer, we will not make the mental effort of taking thought. We will not make the mental effort of thinking, what thought shall I think now? How will I pray? What will I pray for? What words will I use? What thoughts will I think? None of that has anything to do with prayer. Prayer is a silence in which we hear the voice of God. Prayer is a silence in which we hear the voice of God. Don't pray with the mind, pray with the soul. Let the soul pray in you. Be a witness to it. And let the body perform its functions too. Be a witness to it. Be a witness to the Spirit motivating, animating, permeating the body. Be a witness to it. It is almost like standing 3 inches to the right of yourself always and watching everything take place. It is almost like standing in back of yourself and seeing yourself function. I had that experience one time when I had no automobile and needed one. And I was riding around on streetcars and buses. Now, this is not a right idea of transportation. This is not the right sense of transportation. There's something better than this. I was sitting in a streetcar thinking that. What? And as I sat quietly, all of a sudden I found myself in back of myself, looking at myself from here to here, over the back of the seat in the trolley car. And there I was from here up, and me in back of it. And then the words came, that is the true idea of transportation. Instantaneity. You're already there. And the next day I had an automobile. I had the use of one. You see, I couldn't have thought that. I couldn't have reasoned that. I couldn't have prayed that. That had to take place as an activity of God within me, and then the activity of God within me made the automobile available to me the next day. I didn't. I had nothing to do with it. It was brought to me, to my office. The activity of truth is the healer. The activity of truth in your consciousness is the healer. You can't think enough right thought to make a demonstration. You don't know what to think or how to pray or what to pray for. So give it up. Give it up and rest. Rest in that prayer. Yes, it's all right if you need transportation and haven't got it to sit down and say, now wait a minute. I have a need of transportation. Now what is the truth about it? And then turn it over to God and let God give you the truth. Don't go on from there and give a treatment. In the same way, you may find yourself with indigestion, and you might sit down and say, well, here, this is a note. I've got indigestion. What about it? No, keep quiet. The truth will make you free, not any thinking you do about it. The truth will make you free. Now become receptive to the truth, which is the Word of God, and then you will find a great secret, great mystery. His Word does not return void. The treatment that you think up might. His Word will not return void. His Word is quick and sharp and powerful. Does not return void. But be sure that it is His Word. You see how we come back always to the subject of God, truth, prayer. It cannot get away from it in this message because it is the entire secret. When we read about giving up self, we mean nothing of what the world thinks of as an ascetic nature. The asceticism we're thinking of is that ability and willingness, or willingness and ability, to sit quietly and let the Word of God come to us, let God use us as instruments. That is the giving up of the self. That is the giving up of the false ego, the false sense of I. The false sense of I would love to use the mind to think up a very complicated treatment. I knew people who told me they have 5 steps to a treatment. If you leave out one of those steps, the treatment won't be complete. And others had 3 steps to a treatment. And, what's the use? We had one man one time who, whenever someone asked him for help, said that he gave them a full treatment when they asked for help. And then at midnight, before he retired, he gave them a half treatment. And what was a full treatment? 20 minutes. And a half treatment was 10 minutes. Well, that's fact. He believed it, and he got results in accordance with his belief. As you believe in your heart, so is it unto you. And if you can just believe in 20 minutes, 20 minutes will be God to you. And if you can believe in 10 minutes, 10 minutes will be a half of God. And a half of God is better than none. Now look, no effect can be God. Is that clear? Whether it's a thought or a thing. I don't care whether you carry a charm or wear a crucifix or a Star of David. It's an effect. I don't care how good your thinking is or how sweet and pure it is. It's an effect. And it can't be God. Thoughts can't be God. Right thinking can't be God. Being a good man or a good woman can't be God. Only God can be God. Now, what is God? Now, the moment you try to think, you're wrong. Because if you could name it, it isn't that. No matter what concept of God you could have, it wouldn't be correct. All that you could ever get with the mind is a concept of God. You couldn't get God. So you might as well be still and let God be God in you. Then you will know God by the effect. Now certainly, you can make a God of anything you wish. You can go to Lourdes and be healed, and you can go up to St. Anne de Beaupré and be healed. You can have mental treatments and be healed. You can take aspirin and be healed. Loads of people are having wonderful results from all these things, but that is not God healing. That is healing on a physical or mental level. And even if you are healed by a right treatment, it is still not God healing. God healing is the word of truth that comes to your consciousness when you are still. The Word of God is an activity of the soul within you of which you become aware. You may become aware of it through hearing the still small voice or seeing a light or seeing a figure anyway, or just a feeling or just that deep breath that comes to me. Those are the effects of the Word of God. That's not the Word of God. Don't think that if you see lights that that's God. That's an effect. Don't think if you hear the voice of God that that's God. That's an effect. Never get frozen to an effect. Never become attached to an effect. That is why many people on the mystical path miss the way. They insist they must see visions or hear voices. They must have an emotional experience, not knowing that those are all effects, not God itself. Now, God itself is not an emotion. God itself does not walk around in fancy robes. God itself does not necessarily come in mysterious ways, though it can. Don't limit God. God can set a table in the wilderness. God can open the Red Sea. Don't limit God, but don't believe for a moment that God only comes in mysterious or secret ways. God comes in the very, very gentlest and simplest way, sometimes a touch on the arm, sometimes nothing that you're aware of except that you do the right thing at the right moment. Those all are effects of God. Don't listen for voices as if voices had to come. Don't look for sights as if visions had to come. Those are effects. You're looking around to make 20 minutes become God in a different way. Don't try to make a treatment into God. God is God, and God can appear to you as a treatment or a vision or a voice or an action or a touch. God can touch you on the arm, God can touch you on the shoulder, and you'll notice it. It'll be a very physical thing. But that isn't God. That is the effect of God. Once you seek those effects, you will lose God. Please never get embroiled in seeking an effect. Never try to be concerned how God shall come to you. Be concerned to worship God in spirit and in truth. To worship God as spirit, as truth. And let God define itself to you. Let God define itself to you in any way that it wishes. Don't limit it. Don't outline. Don't expect because you've had an experience today that God will manifest itself the same way tomorrow. Don't do it, because it may never happen again, and you'll just spend a lifetime of misery. Many mystics have missed the way because they had a God experience and they knew all about it and just what it should be, and then they waited the rest of their lives for it to happen again. Some of them have had it happen twice, and a few have had it happen 3 times. But think of all they missed in between by waiting for just those experiences when they could have had God every day in the week, if only they hadn't limited in their own thinking the way that God should come. No, think of God as God, but do not think of any effect as being God. And do not desire God to appear in or as any effect. Be satisfied for God to be God. Let's rest just a few minutes. Now this leads us to something that must become a conscious practice. There must be an effort made to attain this next point until it becomes second nature. You will remember that the basis of this class is the 2 great commandments of the Master. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. You remember that in that we learn that we must not have idolatry. We must not bow down to idols to worship them. In the ordinary religious sense, that has been interpreted to mean that we shouldn't make graven images, carved images, and worship them as God. But we have a deeper meaning than that. Anything that is an effect that we would rely on, depend on, would be idolatry, whether it were a thing or a thought. Now, things and thoughts are not wrong. Things and thoughts are right in their rightful places and for their rightful uses, but not to be thought of as God or as God power. So then, in proportion as we would look to person or thing or thought for our good. In that proportion would we be worshiping idols. We would be expecting good from effects. Now then, how are we to come to the point where we really and truly obey that first commandment, since it is so important that it is the first commandment of the great Master, as well as the first commandment of the Mosaic Decalogue? How are we to obey that commandment? How are we to do away with a dependence or reliance on that which exists as effect? There's only one way. If you recognize an effect to be an effect, you will not place your faith, hope, confidence, or reliance on it. First must come the recognition of what constitutes an effect. In other words, if the thought were to come to you, what thought should I think? Then the next thought must come in, what difference would it make what thought I think? A thought is an effect. If the thought should come to you, I wonder if so-and-so can help me, the next thing must be, but so-and-so is an effect. I must go to God. The moment our thought or reliance goes on anything that is an effect, we are idolatrous. There's an illustration comes to my mind. Very often we advertise. We may advertise for employment. We may advertise to get employees. We may advertise to sell something, or we may advertise to buy something. Now, the placing of an ad is legitimate, even in our spiritual work. Relying on it for good would be an error. Then why advertise? To call attention to use as an instrument, the same as we would use our body as an instrument to get from here to there. In other words, if I am going to conduct a class in some city, you probably will receive a letter. It won't be an advertisement, but it will be a letter stating that there is going to be a class in this or that city. Now, I can assure you that my hope and faith is not in that letter. And my hope and faith is not in your being there. The letter is only an instrument to make you acquainted with a fact of which you may avail yourself if you like, if it serves your purpose. And if not, that's all right too. The purpose of the letter is to acquaint you with a fact. My reliance isn't on that letter, and my reliance is not on your attendance. My reliance for my good is on my God. Is that clear? Now, I may tomorrow want to sell a piece of machinery that I own, and I may sell it, I may advertise it. I am not advertising it with reliance on that ad to do anything for me. I am using that ad to make somebody acquainted, someone who may have use of that machine, to make them acquainted with the fact that it is available at this place, at this address, and at that price. Do you see that? But my reliance is on God to draw to me. Now then, someone may come as a direct result of that ad. And again, the sale may be made with no one ever being aware of it at all. It makes no difference whether anyone reads it or not. My faith wasn't in it. My confidence was in God to complete the transaction. The instrument, the ad, was merely one of a human footstep of making acquainted. There was an experience told of that some years ago by a Christian Science lecturer. A woman had been widowed, and when the estate was settled, it was found that she had enough income to live exactly as she always had lived, except for about $10 a week that she would be short. And so, having this extra room now in the house, in the apartment, she thought to rent this room for $10 a week to make up the difference. And she prepared the room, and then she advertised it. And very few people came, and of those that came, none took the room. And after a while, she consulted this man in his capacity as practitioner, this lecturer, and he said to her, "What were you advertising?" Well, I said, "A room, neat, clean, reasonably priced." I said, "I guess nobody wanted it." He said, "Did you ever stop to think, though, how many people are looking for a home with love, companionship, joy?" No, it was a little different thought to her. But he said, "Of course, I wouldn't put that in an ad. But I think I would go home and see if I couldn't understand that I was advertising something more than just a clean room for a reasonable price. See if in your heart and soul you don't really feel that that room would be a home for somebody. And that with you in it, there would be purity and a good companionship if necessary. Neatness and all the rest of these qualities of good." And she caught the point very quickly. And a couple of days later, a young man came, and he had this ad in his pocket. And of course, the moment he saw the room, that was what he wanted, and he took it. And then he saw her science books on the table, and he said, "Oh, are you a Christian Scientist?" She said, "Well, yes." He said, "Well, isn't that strange? I wonder why I carried this ad around for a whole week when this is just what I was looking for, but I couldn't come here before today." Yes, you see, he wasn't looking for a room at a reasonable price. He was looking for a home. He was looking for love, companionship. And the moment she had that to offer, then the ad became effective. Do you see what I mean? The difference between depending on an ad, which is an effect, and depending on love, God, which is cause. Now, it is exactly the same in every department of our existence. First, find out whether your dependence is on an effect, even if it's on a treatment. You might even believe that your healing is dependent on a practitioner. You'd be worse off now than if you believed in treatment. You see, your healing, your harmony, is dependent only on God, and God is truth operating in consciousness. Truth active in consciousness. The prayer of communion which makes truth available to you in your individual consciousness. Now then, be sure that you are not depending on a statement of truth, but on truth itself. There again you come to a difference in some metaphysical work and in the infinite way. We do not use statements of truth as affirmations. Never under any circumstances. And yet we use statements of truth. And here is the difference. If the thought should come to us The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. And supposing we were to repeat that 10 times, that would be an affirmation, and it would be a dependence on the 23rd Psalm for what? To make it come true. And that would be an erroneous use of the 23rd Psalm. Suppose, however, that psalm should come to our thought. The Lord is my shepherd. Oh, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Oh, well, that's quite a different thing. Now I can relax. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And I don't have to repeat that again. I am now relying not on the 23rd Psalm. I'm relying on the Lord as my shepherd. Do you see the difference? I have relaxed myself the moment I remembered that the Lord was my shepherd. But I didn't use the statement, the Lord is my shepherd, to make it so. I didn't declare that he maketh me to lie down in green pastures, hoping that he would bring it about. I merely brought it back to conscious remembrance that he does lead me beside the still waters. And that's all that's to it. Now I can relax. Or again, he performeth that which is given me to do. Well, you know, you could recite that 1,000 times and nothing would happen. But if that thought came to your mind, he performeth that which is given me to do, and you say, he? Yes, the Father within me doeth it. Oh, and then dismiss it. Now you're depending on he, the Father within me, to do it. You're not depending on the statement. The statement is an effect. But the he within me, that's cause. Do you see the difference? Now be very careful. Never trust a statement of truth to do anything for you. It won't. A statement of truth is to remind you of something that is already true, so that you can relax your fears and rest in the truth that that statement reminded you of. Is that clear? Now that must become clear, so that you never, if you get to depending on a Bible, later you'll do what they did in the last war. You'll start putting steel plates in it. The Bible won't be thick enough, so you'll get steel plates. After that, you'll need uranium linings. Always you will be depending on an effect. You see that? And when the Bible isn't thick enough, you'll have to surround it with steel. Well, we don't depend on the Bible. And we don't depend on statements in the Bible. We depend on the source of the Bible. And the statements in the Bible merely remind us of the truth of being. And then it's on the truth of being that we rely. We can safely rely on the shepherd leading us beside the still waters. We can safely rely on he that is within me to perform that which is given me to do. We can safely rely on the he that perfecteth that which concerneth me. But don't rely on the statement, because someday you'll find that it's a broken reed. Never, never, never believe in the power of a statement or of a thought, even of a right thought, even of a true thought. Always go back to the cause of that thought, the source of that thought. That's where your power is. That's where your life is, in the source of the thought, in the source of the Bible, in the source of truth, in the consciousness from which it emanated. And what consciousness is that? Yours. Even this book emanated from your consciousness. It had to. God is your consciousness. There is only one. There is only one consciousness, and that's God. And God is your consciousness, and this emanated from God. Therefore, it emanated from your consciousness. And even if there are passages in here that you do not know, if you close your eyes when you need them, they'll come right to you. You say, well, that's one I never knew before. That's right. You didn't consciously know it, but you always knew it because you were the very source of it. Thousands of years ago you voiced it. Because God was the voice. And God is your consciousness. God is individual consciousness. If God weren't your consciousness, we wouldn't be here all together in one place of one mind. We were only drawn here because each of us has the same mind drawing us together. The same consciousness, the same soul is drawing us together. Now God is your consciousness, and God is the author of this book. But you see, God can voice this book in a language that the ancient Hebrews never knew. God can voice this book in a language that the Christians never knew. God can voice this in the language of 20th century slang, but it still would be truth. And it still would emanate from the depth of your consciousness. So always remember to go back to the depths of your consciousness for what you want, not to any effect that's in the realm of thought or things.